Welcome to Before the Work Begins with me, Jo Hutton, senior yoga teacher and author of best-selling Substack Yoga for Tired People. And in this podcast, we speak to the movers, the shakers and the creatives and find out what they are doing before the work begins. Are they really getting up at 5 a.m. and taking cold plunges, or are they just trying to get by like the rest of us? I hope you enjoy. Welcome to today's episode, and I am joined by the absolute powerhouse, gorgeous human being and fellow Jo, that is Jo Feeley. So you have probably got quite a lot of experience in explaining what you do. So I'm going to let it go over to you if you can explain what a trend forecaster is.
A trend forecaster works behind the design industry. So I help retailers and brands decide what products to design, and it usually takes them about 2 to 3 years to produce a product. So if they're working in bed linen or children's toys or baby bottles, it takes them about 2 years to get a product on the shelf. And by that time, of course, the consumer desire kind of changed dramatically. So my job is to preempt and predict and forecast those trends so that a designer knows exactly what to produce and when it's going to be popular.
And is that a job that has always been around, or is it something that you've had to kind of pioneer?
It has been around for a long time. So I studied fashion at university, and that's when I uncovered this magic secret world of trend forecasting. And I was told then there were only 200 jobs worldwide in trend forecasting.
How did they know that?
There were so few trend forecasting companies, and within them there may be like 1 or 2 people doing the forecasting. It was just a really small industry. It did explode sort of late 90s. I have had to set up my own career as a trend forecaster and make my own opportunities as a trend forecaster, but there weren't necessarily lots of jobs I could apply to be a trend forecaster.
So you have your own business. How would your morning look?
Over the years, I've got a team of 15 now, and that's changed over the years. We've had bigger teams, smaller teams. It's actually 20 years this year since I created my own first trend forecast. So it's a bit of a milestone.
Does that feel like a long time or a short time?
Really long time. Really long time. So the first trend forecast I produced, and it was for spring summer 2008, and obviously it was forecast 2 years ahead. And my mornings then would have been really different. I was definitely doing the kind of startup grind, working every single hour. And as I've built a team and built some sort of sense of what longevity will look like as a person running a business, I've really paced how I spend my time now. And that again does change. Last year I was covering somebody's maternity leave. This year I'm not. So I've dialed my hours back a little bit more this year. And my mornings now, I try to remember that those first couple of hours in the morning really matter to me as to how the day's going to pan out. It's important for me to find some sort of sense of calm, to set the tone for the day. If I set the tone by looking at my emails and flying around and skipping breakfast and not getting fresh air, it's a worse day. So I've got a little boy that I have to get to school in the morning. So we get out, we do our steps. I walk him to school. I take the dog for a walk. It's a calm start to the day.
So what did this morning look like?
This morning looked like that. It looked exactly like that. Had breakfast, took my son to school. I had a meeting, but it didn't start till 10 o'clock. I try and really think intentionally. If I've got a meeting, I'll make sure it's in a nice place. I'll not start it till 10 o'clock, so I'm not running around. And I have the sort of luxury of that choice now, but I've also like very, very purposefully crafted life to be like that, because there's times when it really hasn't been like that at all, and that's been to my detriment.
When was it the most hectic then?
Well, there are 2 probably phases. I think the startup phase, because I was also pregnant with my first son.
Did you start up while you were pregnant?
Yes. So I did have a job and I was freelance. The planned income that I thought I was going to have wasn't there. I was freelance. Obviously, I had other things that I could do and other things I was planning to do. And I was starting to set up Trend Bible, but it was nowhere near as stable a business that could afford me an income. So I taught 2 days a week in Middlesbrough, which is a good hour away from where I live as well. And the conditions of taking that role where I taught 2 days a week were that I also did my PGCE certificate. So I was teaching 2 days a week, trying to set up my own business, freelancing for this large corporate supermarket, which was based near London. So there was a commute to that. and doing my PGC at Northumbria University on a Tuesday afternoon.
And then what happened when the baby arrived? Did you have to dial it back? Or
yes, my plan was like take 3 months off. That's what I figured I could kind of afford to do. And sort of spent some time with the massive adjustment of being a mother to him, and really had to just focus back on, right, we need to generate an income again, because statutory maternity pay doesn't get you very far.
No.
So I did have a lot of support from my mum and dad and my sister, and we swapped a bit of childcare. But yeah, it was straight back into it. And by the time I had my second son, I vowed that I would never do it like that again.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up having a full year off with my second son. So it was a completely different experience. But we were in a different place as a business by then.
Did that experience influence how you behaved to your staff?
Yes. Yeah. Had a lot of sort of corporate roles, and those shaped how I wanted to show up as a boss. And those early days of being my own boss also shaped how I wanted to show up for other people. I didn't want people to, I've had people who've burst into tears when they've told me that they're pregnant, which should be a really happy moment for them. And they're so frightened to tell me, because they've had experiences before as a result of just saying, I'm pregnant, I'm going to be taking some time out. And that just seems so, so wrong. So I think if you spoke to anybody that had been off on maternity leave at Trend Bible and had either come back or not, I'm confident they would all say they had a good experience, because I've got so much respect for, there's nothing more important when that person chooses to become a mum than them going away and having a healthy pregnancy and having a healthy baby. Like, that's all that matters. And work, whether you like it or not, becomes it becomes second place. I think we have to reappropriate how we're going to live our lives in that instance. So yeah, it massively shapes how I lead the business. And we have a mostly female workforce, and quite a lot of them are young mums with young kids. There are some great companies now doing way over and above what we're doing, 12 months full paid maternity leave. So we are starting to see companies realise now we need to make some serious shifts. If we want to hire great talent and retain great talent, then that's all part of it.
Yeah.
I think there are some really good examples, and rightly so. They're being spotlit now on platforms like LinkedIn as great examples of what it looks like to care for your staff and look after them.
That's really good. Do you think because you've had to be a pioneer in creating the Trend Bible and the fact that you've had to push this industry forward, do you think that has given you the freedom to be able to be like, this is my vision and how I want the whole thing to be?
Yes. And sometimes I get that right and sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I'll do things because I really believe in them, but actually they're, commercially not really viable. And so I'll set things out because that's the kind of company I would want to work for.
Yeah.
And maybe those things are only possible if you're a 10 or 15 million pound turnover business with 60 staff, not a 15-person business with £1 million turnover.
Yeah.
So I still am having to learn about what I would like to have and like to offer. And sometimes that's very difficult because sometimes the ask will come from my team. We would like this, we would like that. Even the request for, we would like to have more holidays. Well, to give out more holidays isn't free. It has a cost to it. And that's really hard for me sometimes to kind of back down on those things, because I sometimes find myself valuing the way that I would like it to be versus what makes financial sense for the business. And that is my job, is to keep both things in check, because we won't have a business at all if I don't run it in a financially astute way. So it's always about that balance.
And do you work less hours now than you worked when you were?
Yes, yeah, I do. So I work a 4-day week and I have done for 5 years now. I always have a Friday off. I refuse to do chores on a Friday. I just have a complete day of whatever I would like to do. It can be meeting friends for a coffee, going for a walk, a spa day, anything I like. So I'm really, really protective over that time. I think my husband's still getting over the fact that I remember when I told him I was going to do that and he said, "Oh, this is great because the garage really needs to go to clear out." And I said, "I can promise you that is not on my list of Friday activities to do." So Friday is just for me. It helps me set up really well for the weekend. And if the kids are doing stuff, I can be there to support them. And I've had my time completely for myself on a Friday. I have to really be careful about how much I do work. I can really easily get excited about stuff and overdo it. It's not about doing stuff I don't want to do. I've got a whole long list of exciting, interesting projects, that I'm desperate to crack on with, but I would work all night on those, given half a chance, and I have to be very careful because it's a slippery slope, and one little open an email at 6 p.m. after I've had my dinner can end up being, oh my God, it's midnight. And I've just been in this spiral of interest, but it's not moving the needle forward in terms of the business. And now I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and be really tired. So I have to be very, very, very careful and very vigilant with what I'm interested in and how that pulls me away.
So that's really admirable, because as you're saying that, I'm recognizing I'm recognizing myself in that, and that's really admirable. Was there something that happened that you were like, right, okay, I really need to get a handle on this?
Yes. So in 2020, in the pandemic, somebody very gently and kindly suggested to me that they thought maybe I should read a book about ADHD. She knew what she was doing. And I remember reading it when you could have like your 1 hour of freedom out in the wild, and I had my headphones in and I was walking across the town moor, and it was like, even the opening lines of this book, I just burst into tears. I was like, I can recognise myself in this in a way that I never have been able to kind of piece these bits together. I thought I was just really bad at organising myself, and, you know, doing stuff like staying up literally all night on an idea that I was excited about, that the next day I would go, I'm not quite sure why, I don't know why I've done that. I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I couldn't stop. And it was the compulsion. One of the questions when you sort of evaluate ADHD is like, do you feel like you're being run by a motor? And I felt like I was being run by a motor. I felt like I had no control over my actions, and I was being driven by something, but I didn't know what it was. So, I mean, amongst other things, but that was the most prominent feature, I think, for me. That's what helped me recognise it the most. So that was 2020. I did a bit more reading, a bit more self-learning. And then in 2024, I stacked up a whole load of projects for myself. And that included a sort of mini MBA, the Goldman Sachs Small Businesses Programme, writing a book, obviously running my business. I've got a property portfolio as well. Oh, and a practice TED Talk as well. And these were all things. And I think actually we were messaging around the time. And I remember saying to you, like, I've stacked up all these things and I'm a bit scared of myself because I do want to do them all. And I want to do them all well. And you said, I can't believe you're doing that in a 3-month period. That's like people do that in their career lifetime. And that really resonated with me that, oh, yeah, they do. They don't write a book and do an MBA and do a TED Talk all in the same 3-month period. And so my response to that was not to cancel any of these things, because it didn't seem feasible for me to do that, although that would have been a sensible thing to do. So I then got an ADHD coach, a business coach, who was brilliant. And I said to her, the brief is, you've just got to get me through the next 3 months. You've got to help me get through all these projects. And I mean, you can imagine the deep intake of breath that she had at that point, thinking, okay, that's not really the job at hand, but we'll let you work through this and you can figure it out yourself. And she really guided me through that process. But it resulted in the day before the practice TED Talk, I just had a complete meltdown, I was in tears. I couldn't memorize my talk, and I have memory problems anyway. And I was already finding the more stress I was under, my memory was getting much worse. And with the TED Talk, you're not supposed to have notes. And I was really starting to panic about the fact that I'd memorized this talk maybe 3 or 4 times a day for about 2 months. And the day before, I couldn't remember it. I just couldn't remember the opening.
Really scary.
It was frightening. It really scared me. The thing that tipped me over the edge, because I was already anxious about that, I went to look for the details of the hotel I was supposed to be staying in that night to do the TED Talk the next day. And I found an email saying, these are the people who've got rooms booked at the hotel, and these are the people that have told us they don't. And I was on the list of people that hadn't responded. And I just lost it. I was like, I'm not going to have anywhere to stay, and I can't drive there because I'm going to be late. I'm worried about my timekeeping. So I phoned this person, and actually it was their error for once. I assumed it would be my error because it usually is. And I said, I haven't booked a room. And she went, oh, it's my fault. I'm so sorry, you have booked a room. And I did not sleep in that room. I stayed awake all night. I was so anxious, so worried. I couldn't calm down. I was in a really extreme state of sort of fight or flight, really. And I got up the next day and I did probably one of the best talks I've ever done. But I crashed really hard energy-wise after that. I thought I'd given myself a day off because I thought that's what it's going to take. It took me 4 or 5 weeks to normalise my energy levels after that. I'd really badly burnt out, and that ended up resulting in being really quite poorly over the Christmas period. And I actually ended up in A&E in the January on the recommendation of my doctor, who basically booked me into the assessment suite because she was so concerned at that point about how high my blood pressure was. And she phoned me and said, if you're driving, you need to go home straight away. If you feel ill on the way to the hospital, pull over and dial 999. And I was like, where's this? Yeah. Where did this begin? And it took and I had my ADHD coach through all of this, and she was able to help me kind of say, so how are we going to change the way that you show up? And luckily, obviously, before Christmas, I'd got some pretty serious messages about my health, and I was like, something's got to change. This engine can't keep fueling me in this way. I can't keep thinking, I'll just find a way. I've always managed.
Yeah.
I just crack on. I'll just graft through it. That was my approach to everything. And so I've very, very consciously had last year and this year in a different world.
And how did you manage to sustain that? Because what I would imagine is that at first that would be exciting to be able to because it's a new routine.
Yeah.
But if you have ADHD, how do you manage the idea of a routine at all? Are you able to keep a routine?
It's really interesting that, because I used to hate when people used to say to me, oh, you just need a routine and you need consistency. I hate that word consistency. It makes me I have a reaction to it because I've never been able to master it. And, even the other day, my husband said something to me like, it's just about moderation. And I went, I can't do much. I'm all or nothing.
Yeah.
I'm either dry January or I'll have a glass of wine every night. I used to smoke 20 cigarettes a day and then I stopped. That's how I'd always lived, was like in this all or nothing mindset. So the last sort of year or so, I think because I got such a big shock about my health, that kind of was dramatic enough to make me really, really think about how I want to show up. But if you saw the notes section on my phone, it is embarrassing how much structure I need to hold myself into this stuff. And the novelty aspect, I have to build the novelty into it.
Yeah.
Because the novelty is what makes it that exciting, rather than, I've promised that I'm going to, take my vitamin. Even taking my vitamins every day is a massive challenge for me. So I've had to kind of gamify.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of stuff where it's like, I know that I've got to do this week in terms of exercise. I've got to do workout number 6. And so I've got workout number 6, and it's the number 6, it's the numbering of things that really motivates and helps me move towards them. Yeah, I've had to really craft systems that help keep me on track, because I can't be trusted otherwise.
How does that system look? You say about gamifying.
Yeah, so I've got 2 lists on my phone for every single day. And one is my golden hour. It's not really an hour. It's like a 3-hour period in the mornings where I know I can be most effective between sort of 9 and 10, 12 and 1. That is deep thinking time. Email notifications are off. I don't go into my emails in that time. I pick the golden window activity for that day. And when the 3 hours are up, time's up. I've got to stop, which is very hard.
Yeah.
For me, it's not always the starting, it's stopping things that I really, really struggle with. So I know every day I've got one golden window activity I need to do to make use of that, because that's when my executive function is untouched at that point. And then I'll stop and eat something, which again, it sounds terrible, but I have to set a timer for lunch every day. The amount of lunches, and if you ask my team how many lunches they've seen me eat, they'll be like, oh, well, she mostly forgets. And they're used to they know if they pop out, they'll grab something for me, because I'm really bad at remembering to eat. And people say, don't you get hungry? And I'm like, probably, but it doesn't register. It's so hard to explain to people, but that's how it feels to me, is like, oh, well, now you mention it, yeah, I'm really hungry, but it just, something about the receptors isn't getting through. So then I will eat at that point, and then I have a power hour in the afternoon where I'm allowed to do short, sharp activities, which really, works with a depleted executive function, and I'll just power through. I'm allowed to do emails, can do short, sharp activities. So I know now how to split out something that's deep thinking, that requires a lot of deep thinking time. Sometimes I'll change the location as well. I might sit at my desk for the first part, or if it's a sunny day, I'll sit outside and do that, because I don't need Wi-Fi, because it's like offline stuff. And then the afternoon, I might move to my kitchen table, or I might go into the office and do those short, sharp activities. So those two pieces keep my working day straight. And then what I used to do was slip into, I'll just 6 or 7 o'clock, the kids are fed, everybody's where they need to be. I'll just do this little short activity. Now that is, I know that's really dangerous territory for me. I could be up for hours doing anything at that point.
When you stopped the hustle and the crazy like adrenaline period, did you have a period of like coming off the adrenaline? Did you have a low period where you had to get used to the not having adrenaline?
It's a good question. Not that I recognized. I mean, I still get really excited by the same like projects and ideas. Like that's never going to go away. And I don't want it to go away in a way, because it's like joyful. And sometimes, if I stay up and do some random activity for 24 hours, it's a joyful way to spend my time. It's just the next day you feel terrible and it was probably a pointless activity. So I don't want those things to go away, but I have to be really mindful about whether I'm going to allow myself to continue on with something like that. Because I'm a creative person as well. Sometimes when I've had a busy time and it's been very worky and maybe very spreadsheety and more sort of MD stuff than trend forecaster stuff, when I stop, my creativity like flourishes up. And that combined with the ADHD can be a bit lethal as well, because it's like creativity but on steroids. It's like you want to do like to give you an example of that over Christmas time. This is such a terrible example, but over Christmas time, I went to order some tarot cards for my sister for her Christmas present, and I wanted something that was really like some nature themed tarot cards, and I couldn't find any. So I just thought, I'm going to make them. And I ordered a pack of blank tarot cards from Amazon, and I sat and collaged and made and cut out and painted and decorated I made a whole tarot deck that you could probably now sell in a shop, which loads of people have said, you should sell that. I'm like, I'm over it now.
Yeah,
it was just a moment of wild inspiration. And it wasn't hard. It came very naturally and I loved it. It was super creative. But that's the sort of thing, that's one example of just an innocent present. But I do that all day long on work stuff, everything. I do it on everything.
But it's such a beautiful thing to do as well. Like it's such a gift, because you can make things happen.
Yes, that's the thing that is like the core strand of my personality, I think, that I've really learned, is that I love to create. I love to make something out of nothing. I love to build from scratch. Like I love that. I get a lot of enjoyment from that. But there is a shadow side to that it can be very exhausting if you allow yourself to do that through work and hobbies and everything. And as I get older, I've got less energy for those things, so it becomes more difficult.
I suppose it's not allowing the shame in for that of who you are, because it's such a beautiful thing to be.
Yeah, that's it. And I think as I've got older and obviously got to grips with what ADHD is like for me and what my experience of it is, I'm much kinder to myself. I used to get really cross about, the many, many parking tickets and losing my car. I used to lose my car. I still lose my car all the time. I don't know where I've parked it. I don't even know if I brought the car some days. It's like some days I might have got the bus and I'm looking for my car in a car park, because my brain is elsewhere when I'm doing something on autopilot. Yeah, it shocks me actually how I can be physically present in a situation, but if my brain is somewhere else, I don't notice my surroundings to shocking levels. And I'd never noticed that before. And now I really notice it, and it frightens me actually.
Before we started recording the podcast, you said that your dad had built 2 houses from scratch.
Yes, yeah.
And I was wondering, as you were speaking there, about, do you think that the fact that you witnessed somebody creating something completely out of nothing kind of gave you permission to know that it was possible to make something?
It's really interesting, because I think for a lot of years I thought, well, my dad was a builder and I've gone off into the creative sector, and I see the disciplines as so different, but actually there's so much that unifies, and I must have been picking up on those signals of, I remember as kids, we've got pictures of us in hard hats with trowels, like helping to lay the foundations and do the blockwork of one of the houses that my dad built. So there must have been something subconsciously that went in there that I'm still fascinated by, the fact that he can build a whole house from scratch. I think it's incredible that you can know where to start and how to do that. I think it's awesome. So I'm completely in awe of that ability. And I think it is probably why I value it so much, the idea that you can just start a business, or, you know, you can just start something.
I think a lot of that's around confidence to make a mess as well. Like, because I think with build, like I'm not a builder at all. Like, I can't even put up a shelf. And I know what stops us is because I don't have the confidence to knock the wall.
Yes.
And I think with business and with creativity, sometimes you just have to be like, I'm just knocking that wall down.
Yes.
I'm just doing it.
I think sometimes when the risk of not doing it starts to kind of, you know, one has to outweigh the other, doesn't it? Sometimes you have to go, well, I am going to start my own trend forecasting business, even though the next biggest trend agency is a £600 million turnover organisation and I'm one human being. The risk of not doing it at this point is that I'll never try.
Yeah.
So the risk has to be outweighed. And I think it's not that you necessarily have the confidence to do it, but you don't want to deprive yourself of the chance to give it a go.
How different now are your mornings to the mornings that you grew up with?
Wow. Well, I've got this really vivid memory of being in middle school. Like I did not enjoy middle school. I was okay with high school. It was quite fun actually. And my primary school was so tiny. It was a really safe little haven. I think we had maybe 30 children in the whole school, 10 people in my year. And middle school for me was like this big transition into this, felt like a metropolis. It was a normal sized, like probably only a few hundred people school. It was a really big shock. And I've got a really vivid memory of waiting for the school bus, and the bus would take, 45 minutes, I think, to get to school. Quite a long, slow, bumpy country lane bus journey. And I've got real memories of that anxiety feeling in the pit of your stomach, but every day before school, and like trying to get through a slice of toast, but like having to force it down, being like, oh, like another day there. I don't want to go there. I didn't like it, didn't enjoy it. And also I remember days working for businesses in London feeling a bit like that, being like, oh, I've got a 2-hour commute and I've got to get on the underground, and just the whole, the pressure and the race and the rush of it is a horrible, horrible feeling. And anything that I've now got the power to do that is not that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely times when I do have to go and do a talk in London or whatever, but as you said before, like I'll make sure I go down the night before. I'll actually stay in a nice hotel and I'll stay really close to the venue so that I can walk there in the morning. I think really carefully about setting myself up to perform in the best way that I possibly can.
Does it make a difference if it's something that you've chosen? Because what I hated about school was that, like, I had no control over being there.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I here?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, give me a reason to why I'm, like, I needed to, like, know why.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you work much better when you're in control of your own time?
Completely. I mean, how I never actually got fired as an employee is completely beyond me. I think probably it came closer maybe than even I knew at the time. But especially in my first sort of early jobs, I felt like there's just not enough work here. I like to work I can work at an explosive rate and probably get the work of a person that would normally spend 3 days doing that. I can do that in a few hours. I can get it done really fast. But I need to kind of have enough to do. And my first few jobs was very much like, you're just here to learn the craft and we need you to observe and not do. And I just felt like I had my hands tied. So I really kind of, my first few jobs I burned through quite quickly because I was asking for more all the time. And I think people they thought it was a pain. I just kept coming back and asking for more all the time. And they were like, oh, it's actually more hassle having an assistant than not because you're so demanding. So that was, I think, very, very difficult for both parties. There was such conflict. But once I got jobs where it was like, okay, over to you then, if you really want the big responsibility, I could thrive in those environments. I was totally cool with being given a job that was too big for me or that should have been done by somebody more senior than me. Totally cool with all of that.
So did you live in London and then, or were you just...
Yeah, I did. So I studied at Kingston University in Surrey, and then I went out to New York and worked there for 2 years, and then back to London, and then back to the Northeast.
So that must have meant that you were in the height of the glamour of the Sex and the City.
Yes.
Yeah, like in New York and London. So what were your mornings like there? Or were you awake for your mornings then?
I was awake, but I usually hadn't been to bed. So yeah, New York was completely crazy. And was a city that like could keep pace with me, I think, is to be fair to say. It was a brilliant time. I went there in 98 after I graduated with a friend of mine who'd also done my course at Kingston. She got the job on the women's wear team. I got the job on the menswear team. So I had a friend there, which was amazing. I lived in a women's hostel on 34th Street and made friends with loads of other women that lived there. And because we had such a big network, there was always somebody to hang out with. If you wanted to have a quiet night in, you could do that. There were girls who were going to stay in. If you wanted to go to the movies, you could do that. If you wanted to go out all night, stay out all night. There was such a big network that everybody knew somebody who worked a door of a bar or a club and you could get in. And so there was loads of it felt like we had access to the whole city. It was really exciting to be 22 and have my first job and have money for the first time and be a fashion designer in New York. It just was like magic. It was a magic time.
So what brought you back to London then?
Well, my job I got really bored of really quickly. And although I could have stayed longer, I had a 3-year visa and I came home before that ended. I could have stayed longer, but because my hatred of being bored is so dramatic, I couldn't bear to stay in that job, and my visa was attached to my job, so I couldn't just move to another company without paying my visa back, which I couldn't afford to do. So I decided I would come back to London at that point. I did get a bit homesick as well. I kind of missed there's nothing like living abroad to help you see your home culture, the sort of UK culture, and I did miss that.
And what brought you back up to the Northeast then?
I really wanted to come back specifically to Newcastle, actually, because I'd never lived in Newcastle. I'd lived in Northumberland. I'd gone off to London, off to New York. And I'd always had this pull, I guess, because Newcastle for me had always been like the big city. Yeah. When I lived out in Northumberland, like that was the place. We'd come in once or twice a year. We'd do Phoenix Window. We'd do school shoe shopping. And it always seemed like this like magic place to me. And it never lost its magic. I've always loved the fact that it's a small city, you can get anywhere. Rush hour is only ever 20 minutes long in Newcastle, I think, isn't it? So it's just a very accessible, energetic, friendly place. And I've got still a lot of friends that either were here still or that had moved away and come back, and my family's nearby as well. So it ticked a lot of boxes, but from a work perspective, there certainly weren't any jobs in the Northeast as a trend forecaster. There aren't many as a fashion designer. So I knew I was going to have to be based here and travel for the work. And I did that obviously for quite a long time.
Have you seen much change in the Northeast since you've moved back to now?
Yes. And particularly from that career perspective, I know, lots of people now who've got jobs that are London jobs on London salaries that live in Newcastle and that maybe have to go once a week or once a month to their HQ in London or elsewhere. But there is a real shift in that, I think. You couldn't kind of do my job remotely before, but you can absolutely do it now.
If you didn't have to work, what would your ideal morning look like?
If I didn't have to work, it's
probably get a job. It sounds like you'd probably make yourself a job.
It wouldn't be very far off what I currently do, and that's very intentional. That that when you work for yourself, one of the big traps it can fall into is doing everything that you would do if you worked for somebody else. Like, what is the point if that's how you're going to play it? Quite often I'll go to the gym at 9:30 in the morning. I try and do that 3 mornings a week. If I've got an important client meeting, clearly I won't prioritise going to the gym. But if I can forward plan and block those out in my diary, I will do that. And I'll start work at about 11 o'clock. I'm probably not a million miles off how I would start my mornings, even if I was retired. I guess probably because I know I have to do work at some point during the day, it probably pushes me to take that time and treat it as quite precious. Whereas if I didn't work, maybe I wouldn't be so precious about it. And I just think that was completely ordinary.
If you were at the end of your life and you were allowed to come back and visit any morning in your life and you could relive it again, what morning would you pick?
Oh, this is so easy. I can't believe it's like comes to my mind so easily. But my grandma used to have a bed and breakfast in the middle of Corbridge. When you got up in the morning, there would always be visitors in the house. There'd always be guests there. She would always be cooking breakfast for them. And we kind of came second to the visitors, as is appropriate, me and my sisters and my cousins. So we'd sleep over at my grandma's house. We'd get up in the morning and we'd sit round our little kitchen table in her kitchen while she cooked everything on the Arga. And then we were like the Von Trapps. She used to kind of order us out in order of size. And we had to like serve the food to the guests. And then when we go back in the kitchen, we were allowed to have our full English. And we never had a full English at home. I don't think many people, I'm one of 4 girls. My mum didn't have time to make a full English for everybody on a normal morning. But to have that where we felt like we were in the bed and breakfast and I was with my sisters and cousins, it was just lovely. They were great mornings.
If you didn't have to take your little boy to school, how do you think your mornings are going to change?
Well, I still have a dog and she still needs to be walked. So I am confident that I would still get out and get some steps in. Even that's really changed over the years because I'll go on a dog walk now and I don't put my earphones in. I don't listen to a podcast because I know what's going to happen if I listen to a podcast. I'm going to have loads of good ideas. Yeah. I'm going to have to race back or take loads of voice notes and I'm going to want to send emails and change things and do things. So a podcast is not safe territory for me. It depletes my executive function. And what I'm trying to do early in the morning is keep that really topped up so that I can use it on the activities where I really need it later.
And do you like to do the same thing? Like, do you like repetition of the same thing of like going on this? If you're going for a walk, do you do the same route or would you have a different route?
I've got a funny relationship with repetition. Like we go on the same holiday to the same place each year, and that feels like a very safe thing for me. With something less high risk than a holiday, where it's just a dog walk, I might be inclined to sort of do something a bit different. But it's always a sort of play off between, is this going to be more disappointing than the thing that I usually do? Yeah. It's always like I don't want it to be worse. Yeah. I really like the comfort of something, a known good experience. So in that respect, for all I do probably take lots of risks in my professional life, and I do, there's always risk associated with things like entrepreneurship and setting up your own business. Sometimes in the other parts of life, I do seek comfort. Mm.
And where do you go on holiday? Where's your holiday?
I go to Portugal, go to Alvor in the Algarve, and I see no reason why that should change. If you want sunshine and a nice hotel and a hotel that's near the beach and great food and great wine.
And what does your morning look like on your holiday?
So on holiday, I generally do get up and go to the gym on holiday, which sounds like a really odd thing to do, but it's a really nice little gym there and I don't go wild. It's just a lovely place. And I used to do it when the kids were little because it was a way to get it out from doing jobs for them, really. It was a way to get some space to myself. But I've just got into a bit of routine of doing that. And there's a lovely boardwalk. I'll have a wander along the boardwalk and just see and listen to the sea. And then we get a coffee, do a bit of sunbathing. It's just lovely. It's a lovely time. It's the first real moment of proper switch off.
That sounds absolutely divine.
It's heaven.
What's your strategy with a breakfast buffet then?
Well, we used to always do the breakfast buffet in the hotel, but my husband is an ex-chef and he will challenge any breakfast buffet and he will provide better. So now what we do is we hire a little apartment and he goes out and buys whatever anybody wants. So the kids will say, well, can we have chocolate pancakes? Can we have croissants? Can we have fruit? Whatever they've got in the breakfast buffet, he will raise them and I can guarantee we have a better breakfast. So it's pretty good going.
So I don't have a big family. I've only got one sister. And I'm always fascinated by people with lots of siblings because I would have loved to have had loads of siblings. What were your mornings like with your sisters when you were younger?
My most memorable ones would be like weekend mornings, I think. On a weekend, it was my poor mum, imagine having 4 girls to it. I don't know how she did it. But a weekend, she would often have a lie-in and she would say, feed yourselves, go out and play. We lived in the middle of the countryside, so it was quite common for us to be, pajamas and wellies on and a coat maybe, and then just eat something that's in the house that you can get your hands on, and then just go out into the fields or the garden, or we had a playhouse, we'd play in that. So my memories of being sort of at home with my sisters on mornings would either be like that, just like let's grab something and get out and go and play, or it would be, there was always like Saturday morning TV that was like, there would only be maybe one show or something on one channel when we were kids. But I remember there was this TV show called Why Don't You that was on a Saturday morning. Well, the whole point was, why don't you go and do some other activities? So it would always be full of, why don't you do this drawing or do this craft activity? It was always required a cornflake box and a toilet roll, cardboard tube and all these things. And of course, because I was very creative, my sisters loved doing cut and stick things. Quite often we'd watch that and then it would just unravel into this like chaotic colouring in session, or we used to do loads of things sort of as a group together, which is really nice.
And do you do that with your boys now? Is it like, do you still have that level of like chaos, and are you more?
It doesn't feel chaotic at all. And I think that's probably because there's just two of them. And they're very different ages. So my eldest is 17. So he's always got his own plans really for a weekend. And my youngest is 10. So he's, you know, he is a real home bird, and he would rather just hang out at home in his pajamas. But we're all pretty similar. There's nobody going, come on, let's get ready, shoes on, let's get out the door. You know, I always really remember resenting as a teenager that whole thing of like, you've wasted half the day in bed, and you'd be exhausted. I'd be exhausted after a full week of like what I now understand would be probably masking, and you know, that exhaustion of having to show up in environments that didn't suit the way my brain worked. So weekends in our house, that sentence never gets uttered around half the day's gone, or this is a waste of time. Like, relaxation is not a waste of time. You know, I've been brought up of a generation, I think, of, and I speak to my friends about this, they say the same thing. There's this kind of underlying anxiety around we must be productive and we've got to be doing, and you have to get value out of your weekend. And I don't think modern social media has helped that. I think it makes it look like everybody is doing this activity and then this activity, and it's all planned and it looks good. It looks like somebody's very put together. I don't think that does us any favours in terms of giving ourselves the chance to be rested and rest if we want to.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Jo. I absolutely agree with that. Are you a morning person or an evening person?
An evening person. So I'd rather lie in, take my time in the morning, and then the danger is my creativity brain can fire up on an evening. So it's just making sure that doesn't result in starting a new brand or something. Just can sometimes.
This has been such a lovely conversation, Jo. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
The best place for anything Trend Bible related is we've got a Trend Bible Instagram, which is just @TrendBible. Professionally, I'm on LinkedIn, so that's just under my name, which is Joanna Feeley, or again, Trend Bible's on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think that's everything, actually.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Before the Work Begins podcast with me, Jo Hutton. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you always get to hear the brand new episodes of this podcast. You can find me on Instagram @Jo Hutton Yoga, and of course on Substack @Yoga for Tired People.